Good Thursday afternoon to you. I hope you're having a great day. 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. We will talk plenty of Browns a little later in the show. We will be joined by Eddie McDonald of Dog Pound Daily. Talk plenty of Browns. Baker Mayfield, some new destinations rumored to be the front runners for acquiring Baker Mayfield. But we begin with some news on the Deshaun Watson situation. Earlier today, Josina Anderson tweeted this out. Told that there have been recent attempts by the NFL, the Players Association, and Deshaun Watson's advisors to negotiate a discipline settlement. However, the talks involving the potential number of games missed, i.e. the suspension, fell apart, not being on the same page. As of now, the process moves forward per league sources, meaning it'll be a hearing, it'll go to a judge, the judge will issue a ruling. They can appeal, but the ultimate say ends up with Roger Goodell, the commissioner, as to the terms of any suspension. With that, let's welcome in Quincy Carrier. And Quincy, again, you kind of knew that this was moving along these lines with the settlements, but right now it's they got to come to some sort of understanding about the terms and the length of that suspension.
Yeah, this is the negotiation part, I guess, of the suspension. And again, this is why I've been cautioning since we've been talking about this thing. There's going to be different points in time where it's going to look like a different level of games being suspended, but we don't know until the suspension is announced. This is a part of that process, right? The NFL does not want this situation getting any bigger than it already is, and neither does Deshaun Watson people. So they have that in common. Now, how many games they're willing to sacrifice for that, and how many games the NFL is willing to, well, not willing to, the NFL is willing to not have them out there just so that, it's a bad look on them. That's the part that I'm pretty sure is going to be friction on. We'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, this is going to be up and down. And look, I know the NFL said they want to get this done by late July for training camp, but I just feel like this is going to linger on until September. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and again, even if he is suspended, Deshaun Watson can go all the way through training camp with the team, would be unable to work out with him or be in the facility once that suspension starts, be it week 1 or whenever. But again, it sounds like the Players Association is trying to come to an understanding with the league as far as a suspension goes. And one of the guys that we found out last week they brought in is a pretty heavy hitter in these circles, and that's Jeffrey Kessler. That's the independent counsel that the Players Association has brought in to negotiate. Here's a snapshot of some of the things that Kessler has been the lead attorney or heavily involved in. One of them negotiating the anti-competitive rules for player compensation in the NCAA relative to football and basketball. Again, free agency restrictions against antitrust laws in the NFL. And as we go to the next page, he's involved in pretty much any NFL discipline case that is appealed. He represented Tom Brady in Deflategate, Ray Rice, the Bountygate players, Ezekiel Elliott, Adrian Peterson, and pretty much anybody that challenges NFL discipline has Jeffrey Kessler on this. Now, when it came out in that Washington Post article last week that Kessler was involved, NFL sources said they feared he was going to argue no discipline. And again, he will point to all of the things that are going on with the owners, Daniel Snyder, Robert Kraft, Jerry Jones, similar situations, maybe not to the extent, but involving, sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, and what has the league done there? So that's another angle of how this is playing out with the Players Association defending Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and what this says more than anything is that the Players Association believes that their case against the NFL, if they choose to go in what they feel like would be an egregious amount for suspension for Deshaun Watson in an appeal, is strong, right? Because they're not going to send a heavy hitter out for just any case, right? If this were a cut and dry, okay, you're going to get suspended, we can appeal, but you're still going to get the suspension, just a true break of the policy, there wouldn't be putting this much effort towards it, but they feel like they have a strong case. And the NFL probably knows that because this is the guy they bring out when they have a strong case against a specific suspension. So this is going to be almost like the Cold War for the next couple of months, as the NFL has positioned out they have signaled out that they have their guns ready, and the NFLPA, they have put their weapons in formation, I think, in a more forceful and obvious way than the NFL even has, saying that they feel like they can even outgun the NFL on this. The fact that we're even talking about no suspension at this point tells you how strong they feel like their case can be if this is appealed, and the NFL knows that, and that's going to be interesting leverage in a negotiation for something like this. Like, I don't ever remember having to cover anything like this in sports. Dave, you've been doing this longer than me. I don't know if you've ever covered anything like this, but this is new territory. Most definitely.
Not to this level, without question. Not to this level and this high profile. And there's all kinds of ancillary things that are going into it. Remember, the civil and the criminal, that is not part of what Deshaun Watson would be suspended for. It's that reputation, the code of conduct, whatever you want to however you want to call it. It's a PR thing for the NFL. Where do you think this ends up? I mean, do you really think this drags on? I think, to be honest with you, I think the league, I think Deshaun Watson, I think everybody wants to find a resolution that they can move on from this.
I'm interested to know what the true highest amount of games the NFL, the lowest amount of games the NFL is willing to go to, and the highest amount of games in reality that Deshaun Watson and the NFLPA are willing to accept, right? I think that number's probably 6 games, 6 to 8. I think anything above 8, they're going to fight because they feel like that's going to significantly hamper his ability to play this season, right? So I'm just interested to see where is that line for the NFL, because I don't think the NFL wants to go 4 to 6, right? And even if you're the NFL, right, if let's say this thing gets to like 4 games, at what point is it even worth it getting suspended? Because you're going to suspend him and then you're still going to get the bad press, right? So the NFL wants to make it at least worth their while to go through this whole process. So I'm just interested to see where this goes, man. Like, this could be very simply wrapped up for 6 to 8 game suspension before training camp, and we know all of this, and it can be easy like that. But we have been following the NFL with situations like this in years past, and it never is simple or easy or goes the way that like common sense directs it would go. So I'm just going to strap in for this ride because I have no idea where it's going.
Yeah, I think the high end would be an indefinite suspension, and you'd have to reapply for reinstatement. I think a year is probably what they wanted, and I think the players probably said, we're thinking more like 4 games. My gut feeling is it ends up somewhere around the 10 to 12 game situation for a year, and they call it a day and move on from it. But I think the league is going to push for potentially an entire year. All right, let's listen to this. So this is Chris Russo, the fame of Mad Dawg, Mad Dawg and Mike in the mornings from New York talk radio, sports talk radio. He is now on ESPN. Here's Chris Russo on what he thinks should have happened to Deshaun Watson.
Why is he even in Brown's uniform right now in training camps? I don't want to see Deshaun Watson right now. I don't want to see him. You certainly don't want to see him. You want to see him in practice with the Browns? He should be on administrative leave. Nobody cares if he's getting paid or not. You want to pay him the $1.5 million, fine. But he should not be involved in the Browns scenario under any circumstances. And for the life of me, I do not know why the NFL has taken so much time of getting this organized. This has been going on for 14 months. This just didn't happen 2 weeks ago. It's gone on for 14 months. He has the power to do anything he wants. Under the last collective bargaining agreement, when all the players moaned and groaned about he's got too much power, they did nothing about it in the next collective bargaining agreement. All they cared about was getting paid the extra game for this 18 weeks and the 17 games. They give him the power. We just want the money for the extra game. That's when the rank and file voted against the big stars and signed off on the extra game. So why in the world is he taking so long? Forget the investigative part of it. I understand Steve's point. What are you going to find out? You've done all this great investigation. Put him on administrative leave. We don't want to see him. We know he's going to get suspended anyway. If you want to pay him on the administrative leave, because a lot of these guys get paid on the fine, pay him. I don't care.
So Quincy, the reason I think they're not doing administrative leave is it pushes it down the road. At some point, the NFL is going to suspend Deshaun Watson for some amount of games. If you put him on administrative leave, he's still there. Everybody's going to still talk about it, and you're not moving on from it. The way you want to handle this, it's a PR situation for the league. They want to issue what looks to be a stern punishment and then move on to it and talk about football. That's why you don't put him on administrative leave, because it resolves nothing.
Well, and if you're the NFL, right, what they found out with the exempt list was that it was more trouble than it was worth, not just because of the points that you brought up earlier, but because then anytime anything happens, people kind of expect you to put somebody on this exempt list, and that's just not how you can go about things every time. And the expectation of that is why they've quietly just stopped putting guys on that exempt list a couple of years ago, because they just realized that it's a can of worms that they don't want to open, and they would rather put that toothpaste back in the tube. So the NFL does not want to put him on the exempt list. And the fact that he's not on the exempt list right now, he will not be on the exempt list, I don't think, at any time soon. They were pretty strong in this early in the process. I know the other cases came out and they were less strong on that stance, but the NFL really does not want to use that exempt list just because it's not really helpful for them. And it causes a lot of problems, not just because it just kicks the can down the road, which it definitely does, but also because it becomes this tool that becomes a problem for them when it comes to legal matters, right? We saw this happen before with other cases. So they really don't want to go to that. And I don't think they really see the exempt list as an option. Either they suspend him or they just let him play. But the exempt list, I mean, it causes more issues than what they feel like would help.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look. Reports have a new potential lead destination for the Browns to trade Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE will dive into that when we return.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Josina Anderson also releases this news that she's found out about Baker Mayfield, told that the Seahawks have a high level of interest in acquiring quarterback Baker Mayfield. Behind the scenes are open to contractually extending him, per league sources. Also know that the process of collecting information and insights into Mayfield is still ongoing. Kind of interesting. One of the things, if you extend him, Quincy, you could get that cap number down. again, the Browns will likely eat, a portion of that, or at least half of that. You're looking at Drew Lock and Geno Smith, so I guess Baker Mayfield would be an upgrade, I would think. The Seahawks seem to make some sense.
Extending him makes absolutely no sense. I'm sorry. I don't anticipate that. The issue I have with all the Baker stuff is that it's new stuff all the time, but it's the same stuff that we've been hearing ever since he's been on the trade block, right? I mean, essentially, this has always come down to it's either going to be the Panthers or it's going to be the Seahawks. And then we come back, fast forward 3 months, and it's still the Panthers and it's still the Seahawks. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much of this is actually real. Last week, right, it was imminent almost, right? They were heating up the trade talks. Now we're hearing about the Seahawks offering an extension to a player nobody wants to pay the current $18 million for. That makes no sense in the world to me. I'm sorry, this doesn't pass. None of the Baker Mayfield trade stuff to me has passed a sniff test. I just don't think the interest is very high. And I think this is the Browns trying to make it seem like there's more interest out there than there is. But I just find that report hard to believe, that the Seahawks, maybe there's a team-friendly way that they can extend this deal and possibly have insurance if Baker Mayfield turns out good, right? So maybe it's a deal that cuts down on the $8 million, and then it's a signing bonus and then 2 unguaranteed years. But I mean, Baker Mayfield doesn't believe he's somebody who should be taking prove-it deals right now, right? That's not the energy that we've gotten from him at all. He still thinks he should be the franchise quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. So I don't think he's even going to accept that kind of a deal. The Panthers trying to trade for Baker Mayfield when they already have 4 quarterbacks, and the Seahawks trying to trade for Baker Mayfield when they have 2 quarterbacks, and then extending him, this Baker Mayfield right now. I don't know about that one. We'll see. Hopefully he gets traded sometime soon, because I don't want this to go all the way throughout camp. And if it goes through camp, he's probably just going to get released during the season or before the season starts.
I would think the extension would be to get the number down and still give him the money over a couple of years, so you're not locked into 18 at 1 year. That would be the only thing that would make sense. Extend it so he has.
The only problem with that assumption, though, Dave, is that we're assuming that Baker Mayfield is in reality with how he is perceived, right? And that's been the issue with the whole thing with this trade, is that he has demanded to not go places during this whole thing, right? He's made requests. This is not who he thinks himself to be. So if you go to Baker Mayfield and say, hey, man, how about you take away some of these guarantees and push them into next year and kind of take a prove-it deal similar to Jameis Winston, he's going to be appalled. And that's the problem. There's just a lot here. It's hard to use logic in this situation because there's clearly a party in this that has not been logical this whole process.
Well, and along those lines, on the Pat McAfee show today, Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, had this to say about what he's hearing from players and front office executives about Baker Mayfield.
He had the shoulder problems. He played through it. It was just a nightmare. But I think bigger than that, fellas, is the leadership or lack thereof on his part. That's what I've heard. And talking to not only players, but coaches, GMs, there is a sense around the league that Baker Mayfield is still a really immature guy. And even if he's healthy, do you really want to deal with that in your locker room? And from my perspective, he has not been the face, the leader of that locker room really since day one. He's never been able to get to that point, which as a number 1 pick, you would hope that happens.
AJ, is immature the same labeling as distraction?
That can be, right?
He's fucked then. You get labeled as a distraction or anything like that around the NFL, it's over.
You can grow up though. Can't he grow up? Jordan, don't you think he could go if he got the right opportunity? And he had a good year. Obviously, when things are going well, guys usually behave and things seem to go pretty well in the locker room. Don't you think he can kind of revamp his career and his image?
Well, maybe this humbled him too.
Yeah.
I think both. Yeah. I asked a couple guys, is he a bad dude or is he just immature? And it was more the latter.
So, Quincy, a little more colorful than normal, but you get the sense there that kind of what you were saying. There's got to be a realization things have to change.
Yeah, and I just don't know if it's there. And that's going to be a thing, right? Baker Mayfield, I think he needs, in his camp, needs to realize this is not Brett Favre getting traded from the Falcons. This is not Drew Brees getting let go from the Chargers. This is Jameis Winston getting let go for Tom Brady. And what I mean by that is this is not a quarterback that people thought could be just easily rehabilitated on the market that they could just get, right? This is not one of those things. Teams are very, very hesitant around him, similar to how they were with the maturity issues, right? With Jameis Winston, where they had all that stuff coming out of Florida State. It continued in Tampa Bay, and then it really affected him to the point where he had to sign a veteran minimum to stay in the NFL, to play for the Saints. And it took him 2 years on that minimum to be able to get to the point where he got a decent contract again, even though he was a number 1 overall pick. And let's not forget, when Jameis Winston was coming out of college, he was the number 1. Like, we were talking about him like he was the next Andrew Luck. People weren't talking about Baker like that, right? That's the program he has to get on. If I were him in his camp, I would strongly suggest that, hey, wait this whole process out. You've done all you could. If you get traded somewhere, cool. I honestly think it would be better for him to get released and go somewhere and be a backup, because that's what he needs, more so than to play, because people know he can play okay if given the right opportunity. Is more or less, can you be a good teammate? Can you be mature behind the scenes, right? Go there and sit behind Tom Brady for a year. Go there and sit behind somebody established for a year. Prove that you could be a good teammate. Prove that you're not going to be a distraction. And then in a couple of years, teams will be ready to give you the fair shake that you want. But if you go to Carolina, right, and you have all of this hanging over your head, and people already kind of have it in your head that you're immature, the second you have a hiccup, they're going to boot you. They're going to be done, right? Because it's going to be the same problem. So if I'm Baker, I really would strongly suggest for them to take the rehab route, not like an actual rehab, but the image rehab route, and just accept being a backup somewhere, right? And I know it's hard for a guy like Baker who's never accepted to be a backup, and this is why I have questions on whether this is going to actually happen, because this is a guy who everywhere he went never accepted to be a backup. But this is the point of his career where he's at, where he just needs to accept that he can be a backup, because he can start. But, if he has it go wrong a little bit, it will be the end of his career, and we're going to be talking about the most insanely talented quarterback in the XFL next year, or not next year, but in a couple of years, because of something like that. Because this is, like Pat McAfee said, this is the stuff that keeps you out the league, more so than bad play.
All right, so along those lines, CBS Sports has ranked the best backup quarterbacks for 2022, the best of the vets. Number 1 on the list is Jimmy Garoppolo. Number 2, Baker Mayfield. Teddy Bridgewater, Nick Foles, Case Keenum. Then down at number 8 is Jacoby Brissett. Let me ask you this. If, in fact, it is a significant suspension for Deshaun Watson, say it's 12 games, can the Browns be a playoff team if Jacoby Brissett is starting 12 games for them?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can make the playoffs with Jacoby Brissett for the whole year. Not like saying Jacoby Brissett's going to play crazy or anything like that, but I think you just have enough around him that if Jacoby Brissett is just mediocre and does not turn the ball over an excessive amount, which you won't give him that many opportunities to do so, you'll be able to win 10 games if you're competent, right? Maybe even 11. We've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers win games off of competence, right? We overthink football a lot, right? Bill Belichick has the great quote: "Football is a game that very dumb men have made complicated," because it's not that complicated at the end of the day. It's a very simple game, and it comes down to competence. And the reason why franchises like Baltimore and Pittsburgh have been able to not go under 500, despite not having above 500 rosters all the time, is because they're competent. And competence will win you football games, because teams will be incompetent throughout the year, right? How many games did the Browns lose last year, despite them winning 8, purely based on flat incompetence? I can count 4, right? Where just incompetence just cost them the game. You're talking about just being competent would have probably added 3 or 4 wins last year. That's what competence is, and I think Jacoby Brissett can be competent. The issue with Baker Mayfield isn't that he isn't able to reach a high level, is that sometimes he is willfully incompetent, and that hurts you. Sometimes he's very competent, but the incompetence hurts you more than the competence helps you.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, who might be primed for a breakout season for the Browns? Sports4CLE. We'll dive into that when we return.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Quincy, I know you've addressed this on your show. You have 6 guys you think that are primed for breakout seasons with the Browns coming up in 2022. Take us through those and what you think.
Yeah, so John Johnson is somebody who we've seen a lot of, right? Whenever we see these OTA videos, whenever we see these camp videos, and usually it's in the context of, oh my goodness, Deshaun Watson threw an interception. He must be terrible, right? We've seen all of that freaking out. But keep in mind that John Johnson has paid a lot of money for safety, and he's one of the better players on this team. And he struggled a little bit at the beginning of last year, really came too late. And I think him in the second year of this offense is going to be something, well, not offense, if this defense is going to be something spectacular. I think him at the top end, we'll see what Grant Delpit gives you at the second end of the second half of this year. When he gets really comfortable. But I think John Johnson's going to be really good. JLK is another guy that I don't know if I got to say more about him. I don't know. The only debate with him is it really a breakout or is just he going to be doing more at that high level, right? Because with JLK, he played his position really well. He just wasn't asked to do much last year. Now he's going to be playing other positions, hopefully at that same level, and be around the ball more, which means it's going to be a more visible impact. So it's going to feel like a breakout. I think he's just been that good all along. He's just getting more responsibility. A defensive tackle has to break out because, you know, the Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, if healthy, is an incubator for somebody to be good, right? Because it's just too many one-on-ones for no defensive tackles to be productive. And then if you look on the offensive side of the ball, Kareem Hunt, somebody who I can see breaking out. Jedrick Wills, I think is somebody who's going to finally get people off of his back. People have been on this man back for a while. I think it's about time people get off of it. I think he'll have a good year this year. And then Harrison Bryant on the offensive side of the ball is another guy I think will be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you on Wills. Wills is a guy that tried to play through a high ankle sprain. That's never an easy injury for a lineman, and I think he could end up being really good. So one underappreciated team from each and every AFC team. This is from CBSSports.com. And for the Browns, they go with Joel Bitonio, 600 pass blocking snaps last year, allowed just 2 sacks, 14 pressures, with a pressure rate per drop back allowed of 2.3, his lowest since 2018. Now, Quincy, nationally, people may not appreciate Joel Bitonio. Browns fans know Joel Bitonio is pretty good.
Yeah, Joel Bitonio, I mean, it's hard to think he's not appreciated nationally when he's been a Pro Bowler for like almost every year of his career. Since 2014, he's been good since day one, and he's been like one of the best guards in football since his first year in football. So he's just been that good for a while. He had a couple of hiccups in 2020, so I was worried about him going into 2021, but had an excellent 2021. He's 30 years old, so he still has a lot of years left, and he's the longest tenured Brown. Just got a new contract last year. So yeah, Joe Bitonio, very underrated guy, underappreciated. It's easy for offensive linemen to get underappreciated, I guess, in a lot of different scenarios. In Cleveland, on the other hand, look, we spent the last 10 years before Joe Bitonio appreciating the only good player on the team, which is Joe Thomas. And then there was also Joe Haden, but it was mainly Joe Thomas. So I think it's a little bit easier for offensive linemen to get appreciated here, and kickers with this fan base, because we love them kickers over here, don't we? We just love them.
Keep in mind, Bitonio was a guy, they were having trouble at tackle. They kicked him out there, and he had one of the highest PFF grades of the week playing tackle when they needed him to.
He was so good at tackle that game that people were like, why didn't we do this before? And it's just because Joe don't want to do it. We kicked him over to tackle, had no problems. He was better than the starter was at times. So, Joe's just a great offensive lineman. He's definitely somebody who's working his Ring of Fame case for the Cleveland Browns. And who knows, man, if this team starts to have more success, maybe that recognition will come more nationally, and we can see even better accolades happen for Joe Bitonio, because he's one of those guys who's really been through the whole era, right? You talk about a guy drafted in 2014. Doesn't seem that long ago to me or you, but it is a long time ago, right? Like, that's before the Sachi era, right? Before all of that happened. Johnny Manziel was still on the team. Like, this man went through Johnny Football. Believe the same draft as Johnny Football, right? Was that the same draft?
I think it was
2014.
He might have been big.
He was the one good pick in that draft, right? Because it was Justin Gilbert, Johnny Manziel, and then Joe Bitonio. So thank goodness for Joe Bitonio, right?
Wow.
So he was in the same draft class as Johnny Manziel and Justin Gilbert, which feels like decades ago, right? Went through that mess and has really seen the other side of it, right? Like, so hopefully more success could come to him. But it's just amazing to think, just in the short time that Joe Bitonio has been in the league, exactly everything that he has seen from the Cleveland Browns, which is all of it, right? He's been through all of it.
Quincy Carrier and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we will look at a list of the top 100 players in the NFL from Pete Prisco. Plenty of Browns on that list. We'll tell you who and where they fall. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns with Quincy Carrier. Well, Browns want to make sure everybody's getting ready for the upcoming training camp. Starts end of July. With that in mind, a little glimpse of the defense as they worked through OTAs and minicamp. Quincy, earlier we talked about what the Browns needed to do if Deshaun Watson is suspended for 8, 10, 12 games or a year. It all starts with that defense. It has the potential and the pieces to be really good, and if Deshaun Watson is suspended for a length of time, that defense is really going to need to step up.
Yeah, and then you know what? I think the more we talk about the Watson suspension and how that can end the Browns season potentially, I feel like Myles Garrett has to feel like the most disrespected man in the world, right? Because, yeah, we might not have those Deshaun Watson, but you still got Myles Garrett. You know what I mean? Like, you still got a franchise guy. And we have seen teams do stuff off the strength of just having that franchise player, right? TJ Watt in 2018 forced that Steelers team to be 500. You know, and he wasn't even at that level yet that Myles Garrett is right now. So, yeah, this defense, whether Deshaun Watson's here or not, is going to be the strength of the team. You know, that's what the Browns are relying on. And unlike last year where we were projecting a lot for the offenses to be good, this year it's not a lot of projection with the defense. We know Myles Garrett's really good at football. We know Jadeveon Clowney's really good in this system. We know that John Johnson, he's probably going to be really good in this system, right? We have no questions about Greg Newsome or Denzel Ward or JOK, right? So there's not really as much projection going on. You just know you have a very strong defensive unit. And that's going to be what carries you throughout this year. Whether the offense helps in that or how much the offense helps in that, that's going to fluctuate. But the strength of this team before they traded for Deshaun Watson and after they traded for Deshaun Watson is going to be the defense.
So let's take a look. Pete Prisco from CBSSports.com has ranked his top 100 NFL players for the upcoming season. Number 1 is Aaron Darnold, 2 Aaron Rodgers, 3 Patrick Mahomes. We get down to 9 and you have Myles Garrett. And I would say if Myles Garrett was healthier, he'd probably be up a little higher, but he's at 9. Nick Chubb checks in at 47. The aforementioned underappreciated Joel Bitonio knocking on the top 50 in the league at 51. They ranked Deshaun Watson down at 83, and I would say that's likely because of the suspension. They expect him, and he mentions hadn't played in 2 years. There's legal issues that could keep him out. And then honorable mention, they have Amari Cooper, Denzel Ward. When you look at those, I think Myles Garrett would be higher if he hadn't been hurt at the end of each of the last 2 years. 1 year it was COVID that got him for a number of games. Last year he played the last couple of seasons basically, or the last couple of games last season basically on one leg because of the groin injury. So those kind of hampered his numbers. Otherwise, he's knocking on that top 5, I think.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, yeah, you might not have Watson for a little bit, but you still got Myles Garrett, right? And by the way, think about how insane it is that, like, and I'm not saying this is an insane ranking, how insane it is that Aaron Donald's at 1 and nobody's really debating that. That's Aaron Donald. Like, at some point, we got to start talking about just like where all time he ranks, because the idea that he's above, and I'm not even disputing this, Patrick Mahomes, and guys like that, Aaron Rodgers, a back-to-back MVP, tells you how great he is. Like, we can start landing down lists of players that are all-time greats, right? We did this last time with Warren Sapp. And we're like, man, it's crazy to think this, but Aaron Donald is so much better than Warren Sapp. He is a dominant player, one of the greatest players to ever play defense. And in an era with insane defensive players, right? We're talking about the Bosa brothers. We're talking about TJ Watt. We're talking about Myles Garrett, Khalil Mack. Aaron Donald has been great enough to have guys like that, one of what guys, be lost in the shuffle. Just a tremendous career Aaron Donald has had so far, and just a tremendous player. And to think he was the 13th pick of his draft. Yeah, the year the Browns took Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel. Just insane to think that, right? You know, hey, Aaron Donald just. I was high on Aaron Donald coming out of Pitt. I thought he should have been the number 1 pick of that draft that year. I was like the only person saying that, but he has exceeded even my expectations, and I thought the world of him coming out of Pitt. Just a fantastic player.
Yeah, every time you mention that draft with Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel, I hold my head because I get a headache thinking about that.
It was a all-time first round, Dave. There were 25 Pro Bowlers in that draft. It was statistically hard for the Browns to pick the 2 guys who would be out the league in 2 years. It was statistically difficult for them to mess up that draft. Not even get a starter, mind you, right? Like, they passed on so many people to draft. Justin Gilbert, Khalil Mack. Remember, they had the 4th pick of the draft that year. They traded back.
That's one we would like to forget. All right, take a look at this on Instagram. Joe Haden saying discussion in his Browns uniform. So a lot of people are reading into that. Are they talking to Joe Haden about bringing him back? Is Joe Haden potentially want to be a Brown so he can retire a Brown? I don't see them bringing him into that cornerback room. It's already pretty crowded in the cornerback room. I know I know the front office, Andrew Berry and those guys, can't have enough cornerbacks. I would be really surprised if they brought in a Joe Haden, because they have a lot of young guys that are talented and looking for playing time anyway.
Yeah, it's true, but also this is Joe Woods, right? And Joe Woods is as much as we joked about Kevin Stefanski and his love affair with tight ends, Joe Woods loves DBs, right? You can't ever have enough good DBs. And I know people are thinking maybe Joe's going to retire. I just find it hard to believe he's going to retire. He was still good in Pittsburgh last year, right? Like, it would be hard to imagine he's just going to hang it up when he still has something to offer. And he's still a good player. But, I mean, think about it like this. If you go into a dime package and you have to have 2 boundary corners, do you feel much better about it being Denzel Ward and Joe Haden, or Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams? You know what I mean? Joe Haden does provide something to say along those lines if you don't use him like a number 1 corner, which he isn't at this point in his career. But if you use him as a number 2 or number 3, sometimes even slide him in the slot, he's a smart player. I think you can find a way to use Joe Haden, and having a defensive back room where you have Joe Haden, Greg Newsome, and Denzel Ward will only help all 3 of those players be great.
All right, fair enough. Quincy Carrier, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Quincy.
Absolutely. You have a great day.
All right, Quincy Carrier. Make sure to check him out. He has his own show on YouTube. Always good insight and stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we welcome in Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily, talking more Browns football. Stay with us on Sports4CLE.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome in Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. Eddie, I know you've written on this topic. Let's talk about the roles, some ideal roles for all of the guys in what is a very crowded running back room.
Yeah, so obviously Nick Chubb is the workhorse of that room. That's the ideal role for him. Kareem Hunt is a good number 2. Whether he remains on the team is to be determined. We'll see in the next couple of weeks. I think he will be. I think hopefully they get an extension done. We'll see if that is realistic. I don't know if Dearness Johnson makes. I would assume he makes the team, being that he just signed his tender. And the cat says hello. Of course, she was not here.
She's a fan of the show.
Appearances.
Cat's a fan of sports for yeah.
But Jerome Ford is definitely making the roster, unless he is just absolutely terrible, which I do not see that whatsoever happening. Him and Chubb are the only 2 under contract for next year. I don't know if Felton makes this team. His role would be best suited for the practice squad. Let him develop a little bit more, and if he has to go elsewhere to do that, then so be it. But yeah, it is a loaded room. But Nick Chubb is the bell cow, and then I think we're going to see Kareem Hunt used a lot more in passing options this year.
Do you think, is it likely that one of these guys gets traded? Do the Browns use one as a trade chip for something? And if it is, who do you think is most likely to be traded?
If it's anyone, it'll be Kareem Hunt. I don't think anyone, I thought before that it would be Dearness Johnson, but no one was really interested in him, not that I really saw anyway, when the Browns offered him his tender and he eventually signed it. But if it's anyone, it's Kareem Hunt. There's a lot of teams I think they could trade for him, or they could just wait it out and try and sign him to big money next year, as the cat knocks me off the. But yeah, I think that Kareem Hunt is the most valuable of them to trade, and I don't want that to happen. But if it does happen, then I understand that's part of the business.
Yeah, and he's made it clear he'd like to sign an extension, but we'll see if they can do it. All right. This is from ESPN.com. One last offseason move for each and every one of the 32 teams in the NFL. And for the Browns, it's not a big surprise. They say they need to resolve the situation with quarterback Baker Mayfield. Cleveland's best path to trading is to eat a hefty portion of the salary. And while the Browns are in a steady position in salary cap-wise this year, Mayfield seems untenable, and any cap savings in a trade would be useful in future roster maneuvers. There was some talk about potentially the Seahawks. What are your thoughts about the Baker Mayfield situation and trading him and moving on from him?
I think that it's heating up. I wrote about it on Dog Pound Daily. It came out this morning. To elaborate a little bit more, they have someone who finally wants him, it seems. I think that the Seahawks went into their mini camps with Drew Lock and Geno Smith, and then Pete Carroll saw that and was like, what's another option for us? And they were not going to get Jimmy Garoppolo within the division. Baker Mayfield, I think, would fit perfectly in Seattle. I think it would give him a restart, give the franchise a restart after trading Russell Wilson. There was talks that the Browns were willing to eat up to $9 or $10 million of that. So that would be that isn't what we thought at the beginning of all this, but that is where we're at now. And the Seahawks are actually talking about extending him, possibly. So that was an interesting thing that came out of yesterday, with Josina Anderson reporting that.
Yeah, the thought being that at least that way it's not a one-and-done kind of deal. You could at least see, can you develop him? Can he learn your system? What about the fit? Do you think the fit is pretty good in Seattle? What do you think works for him? And Pete Carroll, do he and Pete Carroll seem to be the type that would mesh as quarterback and head coach?
I think they would mesh well together, because he's the complete opposite of what Russell Wilson was. Baker wears his emotions on his sleeve. Russell Wilson did not do that as much. He got animated at times like every other player does. But I think that Baker and Pete Carroll are a perfect match for one another. They're both trying to restore themselves in the league. Pete Carroll without Russell Wilson for the first time in many years. Baker without the Browns for the first time in all of his 4-year career. So I think this would be a great fit, and I think that the team around him and what the team does is good. They run the ball a lot like the Browns do. They do have 2 dynamic receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They also have Noah Fant, who I think is going to be big for whoever is the quarterback there. He came over in the Wilson trade. I think this offense suits him well, and I think he's going to be put in positions where he's not going to have to necessarily throw the ball 40 times a game for them to win, unless they get down early. then they have to abandon the run.
Yeah, the other thing is that crowd out in Seattle gets wild, and we know, like you said, Baker plays on emotion. So that would also seem to be a pretty good fit for Mayfield.
Yeah, I think he would love the 12th man out there once they rally behind him, and once he has that first, touchdown drive or the game-winning drive or makes a huge play. I think he would love that and feed off that, and I think it's a match made in heaven, and I think this is where they go. I don't think the Panthers are an option anymore. They only want to eat about $4 or $5 million of that cap, and I do not think that's going to happen.
Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll take a look at some defensive players who could have big-time stats in 2022. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a line. A long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Eddie McDonald from Dog Pound Daily. Eddie, I know you have written this article as well. Again, it's on Dog Pound Daily. Go check it out. 4 defensive players who will have better stats in 2022. Take us through that and what you were thinking.
So Chase Winovich, he was in the doghouse last year from Bill Belichick, and that's nowhere you ever want to be. And I think that with a change of scenery, he's going to get a chance to play this year. I think they can use him as, the defensive end or as a interior lineman. They could also drop him back in coverage if need be. But I think he had 0 sacks last year, and I can't remember the tackle number, but it wasn't very high. I think he can get that this year. All he has to do is, get 1 sack, and he already has better numbers than last year. I think he gets in the range of 5 to 8. That's where he was in the first couple years of his career. I think he had 5 in the first 2 years. I think Myles Garrett he was number 1 on this list, and I think that he is someone that is only getting better, and that doesn't seem real to think about, but it is a reality. Just like Aaron Donald, you guys talked about one of the last segments before I came on. He just keeps getting better, and that's just scary to think about. But Myles keeps getting better. And in the article I wrote that, and I found this stat interesting, every even year he has increased his stats from the year before, his sack total, that is. And this will be his 6th year in the league this year, and that bodes well if you were into something like that. If not, well, that probably won't happen. But I think it is easy. Not easy. I think if he's healthy, it's easier for him to get to the over 16 sacks. Last year, like you said earlier, he had a groin injury that prevented him a lot. But yeah, I think that's going to be huge for the Browns this year.
2 other guys that chat on that. Greg Newsome, second-year player. And the thing about him that was impressive, rookie, and they didn't throw at him a lot. And the other one, obviously, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. So take us through those 2. Those were the other 2 of those 4.
Yeah, so the first and the second-round pick of the Browns last year. JOK is considered to be the steal. As of right now, anyway, it's still way too early to determine that. We'll know that after his rookie contract is up, I believe, and Newsome as well. But Newsome this year is going to move to the slot, it seems, or that's what they have prepared in training camp, or mini camp, excuse me. And with Greedy Williams and Denzel Ward on the outside, that's going to put him closer to the ball and make a lot more tackles and hopefully make up some more pass deflections and interceptions. JOK, they were easing him in last year. They didn't want to fully put him out there 100% of the time, so his snap count will go up. I think it was on like 65% this year. That should go up this coming season. They both played tremendously well for rookies, and to move forward another year in this system, they returned 7 starters, so they're comfortable with most of the guys that are there already. So I think those two are going to have big years, and this defense, I think, is in for a big year, and they're going to have to be at some points, depending on how long Watson is out for.
All right, so let's listen to Colin Cowherd. This is from FS1's The Herd, about what he thinks and where he thinks the Browns will finish in the AFC North.
I think the Browns are the obvious choice. The Ravens and the Bengals in that division have star quarterbacks. Pittsburgh doesn't, but they haven't had any noise and any chaos this offseason. Between the noise and the chaos and the looming suspension and the Baker Mayfield mess, Cleveland is back to being where they've been most of the last 20 years. Not a great owner, too much noise, a lot of hype, talented players for years on the roster. But I think today, when I look at this story with Cleveland, they're right back. They were briefly appeared to be special. I'm not blaming the coach. I'm not blaming the Andrew Berry, the GM, or Kevin Stefanski. That's not it. I think there's a lot of good players on the roster. But you start looking at the bottom of leagues, bottom of divisions, Cleveland feels like today, with all these rumors about they're going to shut it down for the year, they're back to being a fourth-place team. Maybe it's their rightful spot considering ownership.
Yeah, Eddie, I'm one that I look at the roster, and that's usually the least talented roster. Most times is at the bottom of the division, and I just don't see the Browns as being the least talented roster in the AFC North, even if Watson gets a suspension.
Yeah, I don't either. I think this is a tremendous roster. The Steelers roster is pretty good, too. They have a lot of defensive players. I think they have the quote-unquote worst roster in the league, or not in the league, but in the division. Just because of the offense. They do have some playmakers on that, but they have one of 2 new quarterbacks coming in, Trubisky or Pickett. I think this is just Colin. He likes to stir up the pot with Cleveland fans, and some of them were going to bite into this and really go after him. You can't pay him any mind anymore. But I don't think with the talent they have, the defense is pretty good. They do have a gauntlet that they have to go through in the middle of their season. So they're going to have to step up huge, especially if those are games that Watson's not in, to give the offense, that weapon for Cleveland to counteract the weapon of whoever he's facing offense, whether it's Herbert or Burrow or Lamar or whoever else. If Tom Brady and Josh Allen are in there, it's just going to be a challenge. I think they're ready for, but I don't think that they're last in the division. Even if Deshaun Watson is out for the entire year, I think Brissett, if this is the best roster he's ever had, he can play. If he plays anywhere close to better than Baker Mayfield did last year, then the Browns could win 9 or 10 games with him. That's obviously not the likely scenario to happen, and I'm sure that the odds makers will not see it that way if, in fact, Watson is suspended and Brissett has to play an extended period of time. But he's good enough to get wins, and the offense is good enough around him, the running game, and then the defense is good enough. And I think they're going to be better this year, especially when they return 7 starters.
Yeah, I think the defense will have to step up if Brissett is the quarterback for an extended period of time. All right, before we let you go, this is from Dog Pound Daily, the site you write for. You didn't write this one, but 4 potential Browns scapegoats if things go wrong in 2022. They list Kevin Stefanski, Joe Woods, Deshaun Watson, Andrew Berry. And again, it's kind of interesting. The question becomes who is the most likely to take that hit in the event that things do not go well in 2022, do you think?
Well, that depends. So Joe Woods, a lot of fans have been wanting him on the hot seat for the past couple of years, and I get it. The defense hasn't performed up to standards, but last year they turned it around about the midway point of the season. I don't know if he would go, especially with the gauntlet of quarterbacks we just talked about them having to face this year. I don't think that Andrew Berry or Kevin Stefanski are in any sort of danger because I think they're making this move 10 times out of 10, even with all of the extra stuff going on behind the scenes and all of that. and with the suspension looming. And Watson, he's not going anywhere. They're going to give him that money. A lot of people are like, oh, they can just cut him and need $191 million in cap. That sounds good in theory, but no, that's not going to happen. I don't know if anyone is necessarily the scapegoat of this. Now, if it gets worse, if more things come out after the season, then it could get worse. But I would see of this list alone, I would say Joe Woods has the most heat under his seat right now.
Yeah, and again, I don't necessarily think I'm like you. I think the defense showed improvement. As long as they don't regress terribly this year, I don't think there's any chance that Joe Wood loses his job. If they keep improving, even if they don't win, I'm with you. I think all those guys are pretty well set, at least for this season. If things go horribly wrong, next year, they might all be on the hot seat without question. Eddie McDonald, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Eddie.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All
right, Eddie McDonald, make sure you read them, pages of Dog Pound Daily. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Schedule guest G. Bush from 92.3 The Fans, The Barbershop, as well as the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, and Brad Ward from BrownsWire.com. That's tomorrow at 4, Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.